How you doing? I'm Tomlin's Nyback. This is 365 Days Toward Racial Change. We're at day 352. Yeah, you heard it right, 352. If you knew me and heard me with the idea to make a series of videos and stuff like that, you'd be like, yeah, Jay, Tomlin's, yeah. You would not, you'd give me, yeah, lip service, whatever. Because I'm not the kind of person who regularly finishes stuff. Oh, this has become important. Um, Fell off as I went back to school for my degree. Still got a little ways to go, and but now during our break, summer, coronavirus, we'll get it. We're going to wrap it up. Just got a handful more to go. I'm not sure what I'm going to do next. Maybe I do see our comments. I'm up for suggestions on next steps for this. I'm going to stop at 365. I have to go back. Um, the first month or so, I didn't write detailed descriptions as I consistently do now. So, at the bottom of your screen here, you open up the description. You get roughly between 500 and 700 words that go along with the video. So I got to go back and do that, and I think about getting some links to direct you maybe to a website. I don't see this as a thing to be monetized or anything like that. If I do monetize or try to make some money on the subject of racism, these will just be videos out there and um, plenty of script out there to just be some reference to go along with any of that kind of thing. But this particular project is always going to be as free as Google is free. Your only price is connectivity to the internet and data, and I don't see any of that. All right, I'm not complaining. Some people want to lay a trip on you and start getting in your wallet for money. I've been watching just for entertainment purposes. Oh, these guys that want you to plant a financial seed and stuff like that. Just to laugh. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. If it works for you, go ahead. I don't think any like if I well, I won't get into that. But it's interesting to watch. It's amusement to me. I have a different relationship with God. We're here talking about blackness in America. Racism touches all people to some degree. So we're going to hold up and preserve biases and things. We're going to because we want to keep this group at a disadvantage so that we can be an advantage, so we can excel, be safe, have our children safe, die well. There's some motivation behind racism, but it's really a lot of it's so misplaced. When you look at differences in ethnicities, cultures, communities, things like that, dietary things. I don't think any of that stuff was ever supposed to turn into um, some kind of bloodthirsty discourse where um, uh, you're going to be part of a group that does everything it can to prevent the success of another person. Eh, however we come to our modes of thinking and beliefs, I did not sign up for those resources of discrimination and exclusion domination, but some people on the planet, as we know, is why I'm here, are really feed off of that stuff very well and employ it regularly within their group and their personal lives and all that. And sometimes I'm like, man, I'm gonna, you know, be an asshole and do my best to mess them up because I'm maybe I've just been slighted or discriminated against, but I'm just an old softy. I can't sustain it. There's a lot of energy to sustain that. And it's amazing some of this, where a person gets the energy to hate, discriminate, to exclude, stuff like that, when we could be working together so much better. You know, for my personal edification, I have curtailed my altruism a whole lot, but I'm not overtly aggressively finding people different than me and wearing them down like I'm back in fourth grade on the playground or something like that. You remember how you were when you were a kid? I hope you had a playground. Listen, I'm inspired to do this work on racism by a man that's named Dr. Claud Anderson. He can explain this stuff a lot better than I can. I've read a bunch of his works. We reference these works heavily through this project. You just can go back and you'll see I mentioned the resources. We do deviate here and there, but 95% of our discussions are about his works. This was a great book. This first book I read, I was hooked from then on. A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com here on YouTube. He's easy to find. We are in Black Labor, White Wealth today, page 154, talking about black or national policy against black people, and I'll get into some of that in a minute. Behind me, you see the hashtag #US2 symbol. Black women having their resources, supporting one another. Check out Black Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of Black Facebook experience. Oh, if you can't find your flavor here on the World Wide Web, do what I did, start your own project. You see, I'm at the end of my commitment, and I'm still alive, making it happen. If you got a business entrepreneurial mind, check out Dr. Boyce Watkins at the Black Business School, theblackbusinessschool.com. He's got some products, introductory stuff that might interest you. Also, Tyrone Gregory, self-employed tax guy. I've spoken with him on the phone. He's a real cool guy about your tax interests and needs. He's a professional. And if you really like to read, I encourage you to read this book. It's an old book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. It was written in the mid-1800s. We referenced this book as well. Not sure how much, we'll get into it much more. We've been just doing some spot work in there because we've been through the entire book here at Racial Change. So whatever comes after this is just review or reiterate some things that I found very important to me as we went through the series. We're talking about the intention of racism, right? I say it a lot. Racism. You look around, it's not an accident, right? A lot of this is by design. I have this energy and this passion because I don't agree with the design, right? I've come this far, 352 videos in this project because by design, right? I planned it and it came. I didn't, this isn't some kind of random willy-nilly thing. You don't build great structures, things that last accidentally. You look on YouTube and Google building collapses, right? And you'll see the strangest stuff like um, these buildings that just weren't properly built or something, and suddenly, just over time, they lose their moorings or they fall off their foundations, and it's disaster. They just collapse, and you know, it's because you got to have a foundation and do some planning on your architecture, and the better structure and foundation you have, the better edifice is going to come out. I was looking at this here again. There's this building. I don't remember the country, but it's just kind of a tall building. But to compensate for the wind, they put this giant pendulum inside the building. So it always, when the wind blows, this giant pendulum counterbalances the building, so it stays upright. A lot of buildings, um, the wise men and women in architecture and engineering understand that. So you wouldn't know it. The building looks like a solid structure standing there, but there's a couple buildings with the example of being prepared for earthquakes, um, that stand tall. You use different material in the foundation than you do higher up in the building. Things like that, right? I'm on about intentions, strategies, to get us in the mindset about the national policy of racism. It's not an accident that that drugs you can find drugs so much easier in the black community, and that is so prevalent that uh, alcohol, uh, alcohol sales and presentation is so much different in depressed communities, black communities, than it is if you go out to the suburbs where you have fine stores, more wine choices, and things like that. Big difference. It's not by accident that it appears that black people are doing a lot of labor, a lot of meaningless labor too. We're not, um, don't have high visibility in skilled trades, things like that, or business ownership. It's by design. The 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 country puts on a good show and appearance as though black people have the same opportunities, but that's just not true. You know, um, when my parents have to work harder and longer and leave um, the family absent, um, and child upbringing and rearing um, is not effective, because there's no leadership in the home and things like that, because the provider is out doing all they can to take care of themselves and their concerns at home. There's no difference in values um, across color lines. The white family has the same values, the care of the children, as the black family, but the black families has working exponentially harder to um, to make it work. So Dr. Anderson here, page 154, Black Labor, White Wealth. We're going to talk just these last few minutes about our the national policy on black people. And he starts here with this quote by Kipling, 1899. Take up the white man's burden 100 times made plain to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Isn't that it in a nutshell? That so many other groups are serving the gain and the profit of the power group here in America. Like I've said lately, I've been watching these NBA fights. But you got these, a lot of black men, mostly black men out there and stuff, and they're millionaires and stuff, of course, but if you understand the distribution of wealth, profit, and stuff like that, they represent, um, even though they are millionaires, they still represent each one of them a certain um, amount of profit for the overall white, consortium probably that's over the team, the league, and stuff like that. So yeah, they make millions of dollars, but each million represents so much profit, and that collects and gets increased as it goes up the ladder of white power. So all this, it's all intentional. It's all intentional. Dr. Anderson, he's got a few things here um, about the public policy. And to reinforce this, go back and read James Madison's notes. Just Google, I don't know the website off the top of my head that I used. Go back and read the notes. Almost every day it was like, okay, James Madison, he's writing his notes. It seems like things were winding down. He was the subject of what to do with black folks came up. Yeah, they're slaves and stuff like that. You know, but it's intentional. It's the treatment of black people in America. It's written down. Um, there's no representation. That's not going to happen till much later in history. That's still 100 years off, 150 years away, right? For blacks to come to the floor and express needs and some things that need to be done to help black people. But for the most part, you had a bunch of white men in a wooden space debating on what's best for black people in the nation. Dr. Anderson writes, he says, the policy's core principle stipulated that blacks were to be used as a well-disciplined, uncompensated, subordinated, non-competitive, permanent labor class that existed on the margins of society. And they enforced that to the letter. All our founding fathers, all the people we say and nearly worship for creating this great nation are men with the intent uh, definitely to keep themselves secure and enriched, um, but at the same time they dehumanized black people. We're expendable fodder in the system, unprotected labor class in the land. We we dig the ditch, bear the sun, sustain sickness. I'm reading a book. Well, I hope to get back to it. I'm starting to get built up on my books again. I got about 4 books going now. I don't like to do that. I got just have a lot of interest. You know what I mean? If you're a bibliophile, you know what I mean. Book named Drapetomania. Got it from a good friend that visits us here at Racial Change. When the slave, the first two or so chapters of the book is brutal, man. Like when the slave got sick or injured, they just got laid aside and they just waited out, see if they lived through it. I mean, you call a doctor. Or there's no emergency, no um, health care system. Poor man got bit by a snake and swells up and he's in agony. Oh, he died. Okay. Oh, the guy gets his foot crushed in a mud puddle, massive infection, and stuff like that. Just sit and wait. If he lives, great. Throw some water on him, send him back out the field. That's a brutal life, you know. Um, Another uh, scene in this book, Drapetomania's guy he wakes up and he's just plain old sick. Some type of fever has got a hold of him, and the overseer is trying to get his crew together to get out in the field and whatnot. He pokes his head in, curses, and leaves him there. Hopefully he'll come through it, and that's it. We were like some type of artificial intelligence machine, self-healing machine to these white folks back there in the slavery days. And um, if you stuck around here long enough, you know that I'm starting to feel maybe I need a way to articulate this is that these attitudes, the good and bad ones, just get passed on from generation to generation. White power, control, manipulation, privilege, wealth. It's not just physical things, passing from one hand to the other like a baton, but it's an attitude of mind. It's an attitude of privilege in the land that keeps um, regurgitating itself. Same thing for black folks, I think, in a lot of ways, where um, being dissatisfied, struggling for wealth and stuff, we pass that on. I'm going through a process right now where I'm trying to, have a vision of privilege, entitlement, and stuff like my white counterparts, and it's, but I feel this kind of gravity or habitual um, sensation to work for someone, to go get a job. You know, for some reason, this generational, um, this perpetual passing along of these attitudes, right, has really just got me all wound up. And I'm trying to get stave off my fear of stepping out in the world on my own, self-determining my life, right? To believing I have enough in me to make proper steps, proper decisions in a world that's um, really antagonistic to my success and moving up the ladder of wealth in America. Really going through that, and that comes, right. My mother and father, they retired at the job that they had when I was born. That was the American economics. Now that doesn't sound too bad if cost of living is, you're managing well and stuff like that. It worked for them at some point. That's exploded. Now that the world doesn't go like that anymore. So you have to be more self-determined, whoever you are, that's the new model. Um, be thankful if you are like that naturally. I have to work for it. I need education, support, encouragement, prayer, a lot of stuff to break out of this mindset that I'm going to trust somebody else to um, to to um, elevate me and make my life what I want it to be. With this idea of a national policy intention, a plan, with Blacks Build America by Design. Much of this um, really started to solidify and began to make its first appearances in a formal way in Maryland, 1619, and it came with some policies around segregation and stuff. Oh, you got the 1619 Maryland segregation policy. It recommended that blacks be socially excluded. That's just this is before slavery is um, codified and made law. So you got Maryland 1619 is the beginning, and so white people they're thinking, okay, we don't want the black, whatever their motivation, we're just going to say, I don't know, but white folks just say, I don't want black people competing with me, living next door, coming in and out of town freely, having access to wealth. How do we do it? I mean, you got to think there were people, white folks, that thought this. How do we do it? How do we cut them off and stuff? Okay, first let's uh, make a segregation. Okay, they can't socialize. Handle a business and go back over there. Well, hell. Well, that works very well. No uprising, no resistance, no pushback. They just um, they got more creative. They saw the obstacle and like water went around it. Boy, that worked real good until you have a um, cut them off socially, then you cut them off economically. Now with the economic sanctions, now you've created a welfare state, and they're dependent um, on their successful system to for sustenance to live and survive. Well, now you've got them dependent on white power and control. Just the last coup de grace, make them slaves. Boom. You know, now by force, we wrote it down. Over time, in uh, with the 1619 things, it took about 25 years of these little social experiments until finally the edict making slavery a valid condition in the land. Um, the um, the social contract between white and black people, right? It was about from 1619 up to um, 1640 something, late 30s. It really got ingrained. Other colonies were already following suit and enacting their own little kinds of edicts and policies and things like that. It's all intentional. It's all intentional. It's not by accident by any means. Dr. Anderson gives us three big things to think about, three big points, three other pillars on which racism national policy rests. Number one is to have an attitude of racial superiority, us and them. With that contrast, you move from a position of superiority. Non-interference. This is an interesting one. You count on other states, countries to look the other way. This was probably big in Florida, right? Florida used to be Spanish territory, but it was loosely held, and so when you got guys like Andrew Jackson and other people coming into the territory and taking black people, whether they're runaway slaves or free, out of there, and the nation that says it owns and controls that territory not looking the other way, well, there's your non-interference there, and they counted on that um, from other colonies and things like that, and keeping in mind that black people, the third pillar was that they're expendable. They're, you know, they're bipedal. They got heads and arms, work well, but we dehumanize them. Therefore, they're expendable in the system. National policy. Look around you. Just go out today and look at the world and remember, it's not by accident that certain people are generally hold this position in America and certain people hold this area in America. And everything. Remember that it's all intentional. It's by design, being sustained by a whole lot of entities that would probably surprise us. I'm way over time. I don't like to hold you. You know that. I'm Tomlin's Nyback. That's day 352 out of the way. 365 days towards racial change. Come back and see us next time.